How's your hammer, everybody? I'm PTDevil, and welcome to another episode of The Deck Doctors. In this series, we'll be looking at some of the most unplayable archetypes in the whole game, figuring out why they're so bad, and designing some new support to help make them playable. The process we'll be using is examining what it is they do, diagnosing what their problems are, and prescribing a treatment for them to be less awful. With all that said, let's get to the video. If you were to list the top 3 most well-known archetypes, then it would go without saying that Dark Magician and Blue Eyes would take the top 2 slots. Whichever one of them takes the number 1 spot varies from person to person, but it's generally understood that the other easily takes the second. However, when it comes to the bronze medal, there is no such argument, as it is well established that the title of the 3rd most well-known archetype goes to Red Eyes. Based off the ace monster, the famous comic relief sidekick Katsuya Jonuchi, it is a little off-putting that it originally wasn't his cards, but rather one that he got from an even more comic relief side villain, who, mind you, was using dinosaurs instead of dragons, only adding to the tangled mass of confusion that is this archetype. It's a classic archetype that received a moderate amount of support throughout the years between its release and today, and it feels like each wave of support has been designed by different individuals who each had a personal vendetta against one another, resulting in the famously schizophrenic nature of this archetype that has about as much synergy with itself as super heavy Sky Strikers. Okay, maybe not that bad. Kinda sad that this is already the 2nd archetype that Rada has already done a video on, but what can you say when all the good trash has already been taken? Still though, the amazing lack of direction this archetype has in any of its various builds has made the entire archetype into a laughingstock among players in the community, which, given its importance in the series, is a huge insult to the character it originated from. So, at the risk of adding to the chaos, let's see if there is anything we can do to make this playable. Due to the nature of this support, we'll be going in chronological order of the monsters this time, with relevant back row afterwards. We start off with the titular vanilla Red Eyes Black Dragon, a level 7 dark dragon with 2400 attack and 2000 defense, and that's it. It's a level 7 vanilla with stats rivaled by some level 5s, a horribly generic and simple design compared to its more famous Blue Eyes counterpart, and a boring-ass flavor text that doesn't make it stand out from monsters from OCG Volume 1, let alone today. It makes for an allure target, if anything, and has enough synergy with its own archetype to make for an occasional beater in material with enough setup, given the surprising amount of recovery in the deck. Not much to say except for the ratios, which is generally 2 or 3 depending on your preferences and tolerance for brick potential. And no, I'm not going to make a joke about how the word black is the only abbreviated part of its name, because it's already been done way too much by now. A little while later, we got a quote-unquote upgraded form of Red Eyes, that being Red Eyes Black Metal Dragon. It's a level 8 Dark Machine with 2800 attack and 2400 defense, cannot be normal summoned or set, and must first be special summoned from your deck by tributing Red Eyes Black Dragon equipped with Metal Morph. It's a bit beefier than the original. It's one of only 10 cards in the entire game with the ability to summon itself from the deck, and it comes with the simple cost of tributing a Red Eyes Black Dragon equipped with Metal Morph, which, by the way, is a normal trap card that gives the equipped monster an additional 300 attack and defense, and when it attacks an opponent's monster, it gains half the attack of the monster that it battles. In other words, the only benefit you get out of upgrading to Metal Dragon is an extra 100 attack during the opponent's turn. And what exactly are you trying to avoid with that kind of boost? A Morphage Goliath? Evil Swarm Ouroboros? Give me a break. It is 1 level higher than the vanilla Red Eyes, which can be a bit more useful in some situations, but in others it just shoots you squarely in the foot and comes at a much bigger cost than the deck can handle. It's such an absurdly useless card, I think it's hysterical that they actually decided to print it around the same time as Metal Morph, especially considering how powerful a card it was for a time. The last 2 members from this first set are Black Skull Dragon and Meteor Black Dragon. If that's what black is, I may need to review my national heritage. They're a pair of vanilla fusions, each requiring the original Red Eyes as one of the materials, Skull Dragon needing Summon Skull for the other, and Meteor B needing Meteor Dragon for the other. They got some pretty big stats, but with much better options in the boss monster department these days, they have since become outdated secondary monsters of the archetype that just aren't worth mentioning, save for the fun little fact of it taking 13 years for Meteor B to come to the TCG, a record that Shuttleroyd seems hell-bent on trying to beat for some imbecilic reason. Moving on to the GX era, we finally start to see Red Eyes gaining some semblance of an archetype, even though it still falls into the usual GX trap of being clunky and obnoxiously situational. Black Dragon's Chick is a level 1 dragon with 800 attack and 500 defense, which you can send from the field to the graveyard to special summon a Red Eyes Black Dragon from your hand. It used to be perfectly serviceable as a means to get a fat 2400 body on the field, but with the myriad of better alternatives, there's no reason to run this now. However, a fun piece of trivia you may already know about is that this card's TCG name was originally Red Eyes Black Chick, even though it was never actually a part of this archetype, leading to a number of obnoxious Frog the Jam type of restrictions on subsequent support cards, which I will graciously ignore in card effects. This went on for quite a while until Konami finally decided to simply rename the card. Now, I would like to believe that this means Konami has learned their lesson, that direct translations might be more important than they thought, but frankly, I'm not holding my breath. Next up is the archetype's first level 4, that being Red Eyes Wyvern. It's a wind dragon for some reason with 1800 attack and 1600 defense, and during your end phase, if you did not normal summon or set a monster this turn, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon one Red Eyes monster from your graveyard. Same thing as before, it used to be worth running due to a lack of better alternatives, but now that said alternatives exist, this has become far too slow and restrictive for the modern game. Furthermore, it being a wind monster for no discernible reason hampers with the deck's consistency, as it makes Allure of Darkness somewhat of a risky choice. It's such a stupid design choice that I'm inclined to call it a factory error that nobody in the production team could be asked enough to actually fix. After that mess, we jump next to the level 9 Red Eyes Darkness Dragon, because it's the GX era and every deck needed an edgy dragon boss monster, no matter how little sense it may make. Same stats as the vanilla Red Eyes, it cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand by tributing one Red Eyes Black Dragon, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card gains 300 attack for each dragon-type monster in your graveyard. Whereas Blue Eyes Shining Dragon had a horrible summoning condition and a decent effect, this card has a decent summoning condition but a horrible effect, since all you get out of it are attack numbers. The odd level isn't helpful either, since it's one level too high for a trade-in target, and there isn't enough level 9s in the deck to be able to go for something like True King of All Calamities with it either. That being said, there is one good thing that came out of this monster, and it has since eclipsed it so much that people forgot this one even existed in the first place. Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon is a level 10 with 2800 attack and 2400 defense, and they somehow managed to not waste a badass name on a garbage card. You can special summon this card from your hand by banishing one face-up dragon-type monster you control. Once per turn, you can special summon one dragon-type monster from your hand or graveyard except itself. I cannot thank the design team enough for advocating against making this a direct adaptation of the anime version, because just looking at the anime effect and summoning condition makes me pine for the consistency and power of playing DD Jet Iron Turbo. Needless to say, this is a fantastic card in every conceivable way, with a ridiculously easy summoning condition, decent stats, and an excellent recovery effect that, given how it's only a soft once per turn, has only gotten better with the advent of Link summoning. It's gotten to the point where Guard Dragon, Control, and OTK lives and dies by having this thing in their deck and not getting ashed when they tried to get to it. Besides that, it's also long since been a staple in any dragon-heavy deck whatsoever, most notably in Dragon Rulers, but also being a part of this archetype gives it even more synergy with the rest of the deck. In fact, it's so good it's banned in the OCG, and if current trends continue over here as well, we may be losing our one copy as well sometime in the near future. However, its power is kinda neutered in its own archetype, since the non-existent speed of Red Eyes leaves little in the ways of play is to build a board or go for the kill, so as far as archetypal support, I'll have to give this card the Power of the Guardian seal of disapproval. Between the GX era and 2015, Red Eyes got a few complementary members into the archetype that most people would rather not talk about. Red Eye's Zombie Dragon is a card that was made for decent synergy with the Zombie World Structure deck, and not even the good one, it turned out. It's a Red Eyes card by name alone, and that's about it, so there's no reason to talk about it in the context of this video other than for the sake of splashing Red Eyes support into zombie decks in case you weren't bricking enough with the multiple garnets you already have to run. And Malefic Red Eyes Black Dragon is a standard Malefic monster, and the worst one by far, having the worst stats of the lots, and a level that isn't even helpful for synchro plays even with their archetypal tuner. Not even worth splashing into Red Eyes due to the lack of any good field spell for the deck to fulfill the standard Training Wheels restriction on the card. While we're on the subject, we'll skip ahead a bit and cover Red Eyes Toon Dragon, a pretty good toon card but not something worth running in a Red Eyes deck, as well as the retrained Red Eye Zombie Necro Dragon, which is the same thing, but of course for zombies. About a third of the way through the Pendulum era, we finally got some legitimate support for Red Eyes, turning this somewhat clunky set of cards into a proper archetype. We start off with the Black Stone of Legend, a level 1 with 0 attack and defense, and the following effect. You can tribute this card, special summon one level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster from your deck. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster in your graveyard, shuffle it into the deck, and if you do, add this card to your hand. You can only use one the Blackstone of Legend effect per turn, and only once per turn. I honestly feel like this card is just one wave of support from being broken, but that particular wave isn't likely to be found outside of the confines of this series. Nevertheless, it's an instant Red Eyes, it makes for a good 1-for-1 target, and it makes the best use of the normal summon that Red Eyes has to date, even though the competition isn't exactly tough in that category. Run 2 or 3. Next up is Black Metal Dragon, another level 1 with 600 attack and defense, and you can target one Red Eyes monster you control, equip this monster from your hand or field to that target. It gains 600 attack. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one Red Eyes card from your deck to your hand. The random equip theme seems a bit out of place, but we'll be coming back to this card in a bit when we get to the later support. As for the card itself, it's a decent attack boost and offers a bit of floating if it gets popped, or the equipped monster happens to leave the field. Ratios may vary. The only level 4 from this lineup is Red Eyes Retro Dragon, because apparently Time Machine was just such an iconic card in the anime that it needed this level of callback. It's got 1700 attack and 1600 defense, and if a level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster you control is destroyed by your opponent's attack or card effect and sent to your graveyard while this card is in your hand, you can special summon this card in defense position, and if you do, special summon as many of those destroyed monsters as possible in the same position they were in when destroyed. You can tribute this card. You can normal summon one Red Eyes monster during your main phase this turn in addition to your normal summoner set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. It's far from being the best hand trap in the game, but it's decent enough. Given how your monsters are likely going to be destroyed quite often while playing a pure Red Eyes deck, this first effect is a good way to prevent the loss of key boss monsters in your strategies. The second effect is, for lack of a better term, stupid, because it's way too high of a cost for something the deck doesn't really benefit from, since the main problem is that they lack a decent normal summon to begin with outside of the Blackstone of Legend, which isn't even a Red Eyes card to begin with. Still though, the first effect is still enough to consider running for it alone. And now we've come to the part we've all been dreading, the inexplicably awkward Gemini support. We start off with Red Eye's Archfiend of Lightning, because Yugi's Summoned Skull was such a key part of Joey's deck. Same stats as the monster is based on, and when it's Gemini summoned, once per turn you can destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls with defense lower than this card's attack. The only feasible reason I can think of for this being a Gemini is the odd reliance on normal monsters the deck has, even though none of the other legacy archetypes had to deal with this shit. The Gemini effect is, strangely enough, decent, since most monsters don't have more than 2500 defense, but Lynx couldn't care less, and unless you completely nuke the opponent's board, it won't actually matter for much. If you're batshit insane enough to want to build a Gemini variant, then running this alongside Catalyst Field is typically going to be your best bet, although don't expect to win any games this much. A bit more tolerable use for this card would be for their next fusion monster, Archfiend Black Skull Dragon. Same level and stats as the original, and it requires a level 6 Archfiend normal monster and a Red Eyes normal monster as materials. While I like how that means I can use Beast of Talwar as it meant to be, I will forever be pissed off that it excludes Archfiend Marmot of Nefariousness. Its effect says you can only special summon Archfiend Black Skull Dragons once per turn. If this card battles, your opponent's cards and effects cannot be activated until the end of the damage step. If damage calculation is performed involving this fusion summon card, at the end of the battle phase, you can target one red-eyes normal monster in your graveyard, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its attack in the graveyard, then shuffle it into the deck. Hey, I said a bit more tolerable, not amazing. A fat 3200 body to run over some smaller stuff, a nice Armades shutdown while doing so, and a massive 2400 plus burn on top of it at the end of the battle phase makes for a pretty decent boss monster, though the lack of protection outside of the battle phase makes it surprisingly fragile, and you have to run some of the Archfiends, which can hurt your consistency quite a bit, so you're most often going to be using this thing to go in for the kill when available. The next Gemini retrain is Red Eyes Black Flare Dragon. Same stats as the original, and its Gemini effect is, if damage calculation is performed involving this card at the end of the battle phase, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to this card's original attack. You can only use this effect of Red Eyes Black Flare Dragon once per turn. Frankly, I consider this one to be worse than Archfiend of Lightning, because while it fits better within the theme the deck has going around this time, it's way too fragile and easily interruptible to even get at it to work. That, and it being a Gemini, makes for the absolute slowest piece of nostalgia support I have ever seen in my life, and I honestly want to know what Konami was smoking when they thought that this was a good idea. Still, like before, it's okay for a Gemini monster, but not worth running in a deck not centered around it. However, in a bizarre twist of fate, much like Darkness Dragon, this too has a metal counterpart whose existence as a really good card has greatly eclipsed that of the original. Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon is a rank 7 Xyz monster with Metal Dragon stats, requires 2 level 7s, and has the following effect. Cannot be destroyed by card effects while it has Xyz material. While this card has Xyz material, each time your opponent activates a card or effect, inflict 500 damage to your opponent immediately after it resolves. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you can detach one Xyz material from this card, then target one Red Eyes normal monster in your graveyard, special summon it. As if the rank 7 pool wasn't insanely overpowered enough, this motorized monstrosity only goes to further the salt in the wound. It's got some pretty good protection, though I wish it was immune to targeting as well, an effect that punishes the opponent by simply playing Yu-Gi-Oh, but in a way that's not horribly restrictive, and while the detach effect is halfway decent for building up field presence, it's never used for that purpose, and I feel like most players actually forget it even has a detach effect. This is honestly the best and most fun version of Cowboy for Game I've ever seen, because it's the opponent that has to do it, so you get to watch the life drain from their face as they accept the inevitable fate, as they have no choice but to literally burn themselves to death. At least it's less emasculating than letting Trick Stars do it. Now, going back into the weird side of the deck, we have the next wave of support coming from the Dragon's Legend 2 booster set, starting with Red Eyes Black Dragon Sword, a fusion monster with the same stats and level as the vanilla, must be special summoned with the Claw of Hermos using a dragon monster. If this card is special summoned, target one other face-up monster on the field, equip this card to it. It gains 1000 attack and 500 attack and defense for each dragon monster in the field and in the graveyards. Like most legendary dragon fusions, this Buster Blader-ass sword isn't really worth running aside from the novelty factor. It can be a gimmicky OTK enabler if you want to hit even harder, but it's not something you'll want to go out of your way to make outside of a lucky matchup. Next up we have Paladin of Dark Dragon, a level 4 ritual monster with 1900 attack and 1200 defense, which you can ritual summon with Dark Dragon Ritual. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks a defense position monster, destroy that monster. You contribute this card, special summon one Red Eyes monster from your hand or deck. You can only use this effect of Paladin of Dark Dragon once per turn. Dark Dragon Ritual is a by the numbers ritual spell which, except the turn it's sent there, you can banish from the graveyard to add a Red Eye spell trap card from your deck to your hand. I would say this is probably the best Dragon Paladin of the lot. It summons any Red Eyes monster, including Darkness Metal Dragon. The ritual spell adds a bit of consistency to the deck, and it's even searchable by pre-prep. It's still not the most optimal choice, but it could have been a lot worse in my book. A bit more interesting is Lord of the Red, another ritual monster, this time a level 8 fire with 2400 attack and 2100 defense, and you can ritual summon this card with Red Eye's Transmigration. Once per turn during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated, except Lord of the Red, you can target one monster on the field and destroy it. Once per turn during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated, except Lord of the Red, you can target one spell or trap card in the field and destroy it. Red Eye's Transmigration lets you tribute monsters from your hand or field, and or banish Red Eye's monsters from your graveyard, whose total levels equal 8 or more for the cost. A pretty unique form of disruption since it can destroy up to 2 cards per turn, though it doesn't negate, so watch out for that. The ritual spell is immensely searchable, though that one extra level star had to go and ruin all the fun since it's 1 level higher than most of your Red Eyes monsters. And the only monsters that single-handedly cover the cost are the 2 metal dragons, and you can see where the stupidity lies in either banishing one or even running the other in any way, shape, or form. However, it's still a good monster to build a whole deck around, especially with an incantation engine, so feel free to have a little fun with this one. And now going back to the retrains, we have yet another Gemini to go through, that being Meteor, Dragon, Red Eyes, Impact. Did the designer just have his 3-year-old daughter come up with this name by playing around with refrigerator magnets? Same stats and level as Meteor Dragon, and its Gemini effect is that other Red Eyes monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. I feel like this card was specifically designed to taunt me personally, given how much of a fan I am of MC locks, but not even I would be crazy enough to try to run this. The shitty stats, coupled with having to be Gemini summoned, makes getting 2 of them on the field with their effects almost impossible to do unless your opponent is literally brain dead. This infuriating existence on Gemini monsters is extremely confusing, especially given how long they carried the idea, but I'm not going to dwell on why this is, because the longer I think about it, the more I lose the will to live. Next we have another fusion monster, that being Meteor Black Comet Dragon. Same stats and level as Meteor B, it requires a level 7 Red Eyes monster and a level 6 dragon as materials, and if this card is fusion summoned, you can send 1 Red Eyes monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the original attack of the monster. If this card is sent from the monster zone to the graveyard, you can target 1 normal monster in your graveyard, special summon it. It's kind of a simplified version of Archfiend Black Skull Dragon. The burn happens immediately on summon, as opposed to waiting for after the battle phase when this card attacks something and won, which is helpful since he trades in the Armadi's protection for floating into a normal monster upon being killed or used as material. Furthermore, he also happens to be a key part in one of the simplest FTKs in the game, which we'll get into once we get to the spell and trap lineup. Also, he requires any level 6 dragon, so there are a lot of better alternatives to run than having to rely on using this flying space turd. It's nothing special, but running a copy or 2 wouldn't hurt in a fusion-based build. And now, completely out of left field, we have the latest full wave of support, starting with Red Eye's Baby Dragon. At the risk of sounding too much like Rada, I have to point out that this exists because it's a thing Joey used, and that's it. It's a level 3 with 1200 attack and 700 defense, and has the following effect. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster from your deck, and if you do, equip this card from the graveyard to it. It gains 300 attack. If this card is sent to the graveyard while equipped to a monster, you can add 1 level 1 dragon monster from your deck or graveyard to the hand. There's actually a lot to unpack here. First of all, this is a card released just before the Link era with an effect that only activates if it's destroyed by battle, and the effect itself is nothing impressive either, given how it only floats into a 2400 beat stick that it proceeds to make into a 2700 beat stick. The floating effect when this is treated as an equip card allows you to search and recycle not only Black Stone, but also Black Metal Dragon, because this wave of support is oddly centered around equips, which may be the most drastic change in an archetype's gameplay I've ever seen in my life. This would be like if Monarchs got some new support that required them to spam the field with Link monsters. As strange as it is, it does contribute to what is considered the most reliable build of the deck for the time being, so running 2 or 3 is what would be considered standard fare. Further cementing this equip focus is Gearfried, the Red Eyes Iron Knight. Again, only exists because it's a thing Joey used. It's a level 4 warrior with 1800 attack and 1600 defense, and the following effect. Once per turn, if either player equips an equip card to this card, you can destroy those equipped cards, then you can destroy one spell or trap card your opponent controls. Once per turn, you can send one equip card you control that is equipped to this card or to the graveyard, then target one level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Gearfried just goes all out with the equip theming, offering a lot of additional swarming potential with Baby Dragon and Black Metal Dragon, alongside a lot of cute back row removal. This is one of those rare times where a random out-of-place tuner would have been extremely helpful, as it would have turned Baby Dragon into an easy level 7 synchro, but obviously Konami doesn't want us to have any fun. Still, if playing the equip variant, Gearfried is a solid 3-off. The last monster in this final wave of support is the level 7 fusion Red Eyes Slash Dragon. Unlike virtually everything else in this wave, this one isn't based on anything, though it does have the same stats as Metal Dragons. It requires the original Red Eyes Black Dragon and a warrior monster as material, and has the following effect. When a Red Eyes monster declares an attack, you can target one warrior monster in your graveyard, equip it to this card, and it's an equipped spell with this effect. The equipped monster gains 200 attack. When a card or effect is activated that targets the cards you control, quick effect, you can send one equipped card you control to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon as many monsters from your graveyard as possible that were equipped to this card. Slash Dragon is one of the best first turn options for both the fusion and equip based variants, having some decent protection provided you have access to the archetypal equips. Targeting negation is a bit dated, but it's not a once per turn, hard or otherwise, and it protects all your cards, not just itself. The floating effect seems pretty powerful at first, but the setup required for getting the materials to pull it off with the maximum efficiency, along with having to wait for this thing to get blown up in the process, is way too much to be considered towards the positives of the card. Still though, if you lose the die roll, you'll need to have some plan for going first in case you can't pull off the FTK. Now the next monster isn't technically a part of the archetype, nor does it have anything in particular to do with it, but given how I've already mentioned 2 of the 20th anniversary legendary dragons in videos past, I know I won't be forgiven if I didn't cover this one. So here's Darkness Metal, the Dragon of Dark Steel, a Link 4 with 2800 attack with Saryuya's arrow configuration. It requires 2 or more effect monsters with the same type and attribute, and has the following effect. You can target one of your monsters that is banished during the graveyard, special summon it to your zone this card points to in defense position, but its effects are negated. Also, you cannot special summon Link monsters for the rest of this turn, and the special summon monster is placed on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. You can only use this effect of Darkness Metal, the Dragon of Dark Steel, once per turn. Like most of the legendary dragon retrains, despite it being more generic and accessible, I consider it to be worse than the original. It can revive any monster, not just dragons, and it can special summon from the banish pile as well, but it doesn't work on Link monsters, removes the recovered monster from the accessible zone afterwards, and made it a hard once per turn, removing the best part of Darkness Metal Dragon's effect. With this card's Link arrows, I feel like they could have kept the soft once per turn of the original and been perfectly fine, since removing this card means it can't point to anything. Whereas if this thing had, for instance, Borolo Dragon's Link arrows and had the soft once per turn, I can see how that might have been a tad broken. But as it is right now, it's just an above average play extender that gets rid of your resources in the process. There might be a few decks who would really benefit from having this effect, but the only ones I can come up with would struggle to get this guy out on the field to begin with. And finally, we have the card that most of you have been waiting for, the long-awaited Red Eyes Alternative Black Dragon. Again, same level and stats as the original, cannot be normal summoned or set, must first be special summoned from your hand by tributing one Red Eyes monster from your hand or field. You can only special summon Red Eyes Alternative Black Dragon once per turn this way. If this card is destroyed by battle, or if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can target one level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster in your graveyard except itself, special summon it, then if you special summoned Red Eyes Black Dragon with this effect, double its original attack. It's fine, I guess. The summoning condition is exactly what it should have been for an archetype that was based on graveyard setup and revival, but the main problem is that it doesn't really do anything else once it's on the field. More often than not, it's going to be used as materials, because the floating into a big 4800 vanilla is not something your opponent is going to let happen if they have half a functional brain cell. If it had a way to trigger the floating yourself, then it would have been perfectly fine, because it would have been significantly helped with the FTK, as we'll get into in a minute, but it doesn't, so it just ends up being a huge disappointment. It doesn't even get treated as the vanilla Red Eyes while on the field, presumably because they thought continually floating into itself would have been too broken of a game plan, even though the text already explicitly prevents self-floating to begin with. Like I said, it's a free level 7 body on board, so it's not bad, but it could have been a lot better. Now, moving on into the spell and trap lineup, let's start off with the cards that help facilitate the often remarked FTK of the deck, starting with their archetypal fusion card, imaginatively named Red Eyes Fusion. Of course, it's not like I have any room to talk. Fusion summon one fusion monster that lists a Red Eyes monster as material from your extra deck using monsters from your hand, deck, or field as fusion materials, and if you do, its name becomes Red Eyes Black Dragon. You cannot normal or special summon other monsters the turn you activate this card. You can only activate one Red Eyes Fusion per turn. Yeah, that's a bit redundant given the previous sentence. Sure, an instant Red Eyes Fusion monster, milling, and graveyard setup sounds good and all, but holy hell is that a ridiculous restriction on the card. And this is coming from a Mayakashi player. Not only does it take away your normal summon from this turn, but you also cannot special summon monsters before or after you activate it, so whatever you get with this is the only thing you're going to get all turn, so you better make it count. Also, considering that you can't summon anything else, does the name-changing effect seem kind of pointless to you? Well, here we have Inferno Fire Blast. It's a signature attack normal spell that lets you target one Red Eyes Black Dragon in your monster zone, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original attack. Red Eyes Black Dragon cannot attack the turn you activate this card. Therefore, if you summon Meteor Black Comet Dragon off a Red Eyes Fusion and you happen to have 2 copies of Inferno Fire Blast in your hand, you just drop them both to burn your opponent for 7,000 damage on top of the 1,200 you burned on the initial summon to win the game in one fell swoop. You can also chain Serial Spell to this card to act as an extra copy since you're going for the FTK anyway, which is helpful since this card, like most signature attack cards, is kind of frustratingly unsearchable. Next up, we have Cards of the Red Stone. Send one level 7 Red Eyes monster from your hand to the graveyard, draw 2 cards, then you can send one level 7 Red Eyes monster from your deck to the graveyard. You can only activate 1 Cards of the Red Stone per turn. While I don't think running a copy or 2 would hurt, I kind of feel like Allure of Darkness is just an objectively better choice. Graveyard setup is a good thing to have in a deck like this, but the activation condition for this card is just a tad too specific. And if your main concern happens to be graveyard setup to begin with, there are better options. One of those better options is their final spell card, Red Eyes Insight. Send one Red Eyes monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, add one Red Eyes spell or trap card from your deck to the hand, except Red Eyes Insight. You can only activate 1 Red Eyes Insight per turn. It doesn't search the whole spell and trap lineup, but it might as well given the archetypal options. As if that wasn't enough, it's also a foolish to help set up your plays, presumably with the card you just searched out. Insight is a great card and should never be run at any less than 3. Their first trap card is Red Eyes Spirit. It's a normal trap that lets you target one Red Eyes monster in your graveyard and special summon it. In case I haven't made it abundantly clear, Red Eyes loves recovery, and this isn't even their last card focused on it. Regardless, it's an archetypal monster reborn that can be run at just about any ratio. Personally, I'm not a fan of it being a trap card, and Return to the Dragon Lords is a monumentally better option in a general sense, but it is searchable, so it's not the worst thing in the world. Their second normal trap is Red Eyes Burn. If a face-up Red Eyes monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, target one of those monsters. Both players take damage equal to its original attack. You can only activate 1 Red Eyes Burn per turn. I guess you could run a copy or 2 when playing a burn build, or perhaps if you find yourself just a tad short on damage, you could search this with Insight and bluff with Waking the Dragons for a fun little chuckle. But other than that, it's kind of a pointless mess, and frankly I wonder why they bothered adapting it to begin with. And in case you haven't had enough of a because Joey used that kick, here's Red Eyes Fang with Chain. Target one Red Eyes monster you control, equip this card to it. It can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. You can send this equip card to the graveyard, then target one effect monster on the field, equip that target to the monster this card was equipped to, and if you do, while a monster is equipped to it by this effect, its attack and defense become equal to the original attack and defense of the equipped monster. A bit clunky and awkward, but it's still by far the best piece of disruption the deck has to offer. Equipping this to a Red Eyes monster lets you get a couple decent swings at some weaker monsters, help clear out a field, and plays into the equip theme of the last wave, but the second effect just flat out lets you steal a monster along with all of its stats. The only potential downside is stealing a weak playmaker and losing any existing beat stick potential you already had, but if Thousand Eyes Restrict is anything to go by, there's nothing wrong with just absorbing a monster and immediately linking it away. Absolutely run 3 of these, especially when running the equip variant. Their final card is the Continuous Trap Return of the Red Eyes. If you control a Red Eyes monster, you can target one normal monster in your graveyard, special summon it. If this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to your graveyard, you can target one Red Eyes monster in your graveyard and special summon it. You can only use each effect of Return of the Red Eyes once per turn. Spirit is a little better than this card in my book since its summoning range is larger than just the normal monsters, but Return is not bad by any means. The activation condition isn't too bad and the floating is pretty decent as well. Again, 1 or 2 is just fine. And now we finally get to the diagnosis. Obviously, the biggest and most glaring problem that Red Eyes faces is that the archetype definitely needs direction. I can get wanting to have a little variety in deck buildings, but if none of the different builds already have anything to do with one another, you don't try to add something completely new. At this point, any new support the deck gets from here on out is going to have to pick a lane and stick with it. Other than that, it's going to be tricky to pick out anything specific. The decks either lack the power needed to have any sort of win condition on their own, or they lack the consistency to reach said win condition in a way that doesn't require a metric fuckton of luck in your starting hand. I would complain about the underwhelming protection, but Slash Dragon is serviceable enough and there is more than enough recovery to make up for it. Here's a deck. It's basically just a bad Guard Dragon deck. The thing next to Black Metal Dragon is Kinka Bio. Can help make use of your level 1s on occasion and can make a Beast Eyes if you need a 3k beater. And as far as the prescription part goes, I have to confess I couldn't come up with jack or shit for this one. The completely schizophrenic nature of this archetype left me far too bewildered to be able to pick a playstyle long enough to design any new support, so I sent out an APB to everyone I know asking for help. And after some helpful comments from the past, my salvation finally came through in the form of Kieran, who came up with 6 cards to help jumpstart the new support. Of course, a few of these new cards are my ideas, but most of these ideas came from him, with a few minor adjustments from me. See if you can spot the 3 cards that I designed myself. Also, since I didn't want to go back to using the proxy image for a goddamn legacy deck, a lot of these cards also fall under the category of because Joey used it. As such, we start off with the level 2 tuner, Red Eyes Time Sage. Why a tuner? I don't know, take it up with Kieran. Anyway, it's a dark spellcaster with 500 attack and 400 defense and has the following effect. If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Red Eyes monsters. This card's name is also treated as Time Wizard while on the field or in the graveyard. Once per turn, you can flip a coin, then apply the following effect. Heads, destroy all monsters your opponent controls, or tails, send one Red Eyes monster from your deck to the graveyard, then deal damage equal to half its original attack to your opponent. Kieran and I actually had a bit of a debate on this one. The original iteration of this card had the second effect as a quick effect because he felt the archetype locking and the coin flip were enough limitations as it is. On the other hand, I saw the synergy this card had with one of the later cards on this list, so I thought that the soft once per turn could very easily be worked around and abused. Therefore, it needed to either get a hard once per turn or lose the quick effect status in order to balance it out. And since I physically couldn't fit the hard once per turn clause in the card, it had to be the latter. Even still, this is still a very good card to use for setting up plays and fucking around with your opponent. Next up is another tuner, this one being the Red Eyes Swordsman of Landstar. It's a level 3 warrior with 500 attack and 1200 defense, and has the following effect. If this card is summoned, you can tribute this card, add one level 6 or higher Red Eyes monster from your deck to the hand. If this card is tributed, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. A Red Eyes monster that was synchro summoned using this card's material cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects. You can only use each effect of Red Eyes Swordsman and Landstar once per turn. This was meant to give Red Eyes a better first turn option than simply Blackstone into the vanilla, and this card combos extremely well with the next card on this list, as we'll cover in a bit. It's also a warrior type, so it's compatible with Slash Dragon as both material and equip fodder. Feel free to try it out alongside this next card, Jinzo, Red Eyes Reviver, a level 6 machine with 2400 attack and 1500 defense with this effect. If a face-up Red Eyes card you control is tributed or destroyed, you can special summon this card from your hand. This card is treated as a warrior type monster while on the field or in the graveyard. Trap cards and effects, except for Red Eyes trap cards, cannot be activated, also negate their effects on the field. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target one Red Eyes monster in your graveyard except Jinzo, Red Eyes Reviver, special summon it in defense position. You can only use each effect of Jinzo, Red Eyes Reviver once per turn. As you might have guessed by now, Landstar tributes itself to search Jinzo, then Jinzo special summons itself while Landstar revives itself. Use them both as material, then Jinzo can revive Landstar again to use as further material. Translated, Landstar is a 1-card Link 3. Still, even without Landstar, it's pretty easy to get Jinzo out since a lot of Red Eyes monsters revolve around tributing, including Blackstone, Alternative, and a number of other cards we'll get into later. Plus, it also treats itself as a warrior in order to synergize with Slash Dragon. Definitely worth running at 1 or 2. Now we have a few more extra deck options, starting with the one you probably already saw coming, Red Eyes Thousand Dragon. Same level and stats as the original, which just so happened to also be the same as Red Eyes. It requires a Dragon-type Red Eyes monster and specifically Time Wizard as material, and has the following effect. Must first be fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing one Time Wizard you control. When this card is summoned, send one Red Eyes monster from your deck to your graveyard. Then if it was a normal monster, you can add one Dragon type monster from your graveyard to your hand. Your opponent cannot target other Red Eyes monsters you control with card effects. If this card you control is tributed, you can target one Time Wizard in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use each effect of Red Eyes Thousand Dragon once per turn. Now you see why I needed to put some sort of restriction on Red Eyes Time Sage. Not only does it easily summon itself by tributing a Time Wizard, which Time Sage not only treats itself as, but it can also special summon itself from the hand, but also Thousand Dragon also floats back into Time Sage when it's tributed, which is bound to happen at some point, especially when looking at the rest of the new support. All of that without even using up the normal summon. Fortunately, doing so does lock the user into the archetype, so it's not like it's completely broken, just mostly. Next we have another fusion monster, this one being Red Eyes Dual Blast Dragon. It's a level 9 with the same stats as Red Eyes. It requires 2 Red Eyes monsters with the same name as material. Must be fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing the above cards you control, in which case you do not use polymerization. Cannot be destroyed by card effects. Once per turn you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to this card's attack. If this card leaves the field, you can special summon the monsters used for this card's summon from your graveyard, then you can add one Inferno Fire Blast from your deck to your hand. You can only special summon Red Eyes Dual Blast Dragon once per turn. Much like how the Blue Eyes variant is designed for monster removal to match its signature attack, this card is based on dealing burn damage like its attack card. The burn damage takes its current attack into consideration, but more importantly, it doesn't prevent the user from attacking either. It also floats into the monsters that were used for its summon, and also the previously unsearchable signature attack spell to further burn your opponent if you use the vanilla Red Eyes as materials. Overall, it's a decent monster that allows for more field presence, and a pretty good floating effect that plays well with the high number of tributing effects in the archetype. Now we come to the new Synchro monsters. Again, I don't know why Red Eyes needed Synchros, but with the new consistency and swarming of the deck, I'm willing to let it slide. We start off with the level 9 Red Eyes Pitch Black Dragon. Same stats as the original, completely generic materials, and the following effect. When this card is synchro summoned, you can take one Red Eyes monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to your graveyard. This card gains 300 attack for each Red Eyes monster in your graveyard. And a quick effect, you can tribute one Red Eyes monster you control, have the attack of all your monsters your opponent controls. If this card is sent to your graveyard, add one Red Eyes card from your graveyard to your hand. You You can only use each effect of Red Eye's Pitch Black Dragon once per turn. Pitch Black just goes all out with the tribute theme with the rest of the new support, while also acting as a consistency engine for the deck. It's also a good monster to go into with Jinzo and Landstar, or with Time Sage and Thousand Dragon, since its level is extremely easy for this archetype to make. It can also tribute itself with its own effect to activate its floating effect and get access to the graveyard, which the deck already loves doing. Definitely worth running in a Red Eyes deck at 1 or 2. And the final monster is Red Eyes Scale Metal Dragon. It's a level 10 with Metal Dragon stats, as you might expect. It requires 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner Red Eyes monsters as materials, and has the following effect. If this card was synchro summoned using a monster that was equipped with Metal Morph, you can activate this effect. This monster gains attack equal to half the original attack of the monsters used for its synchro summon. Other Red Eyes monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. If this card leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, you can set one Red Eyes Scale Metal or Metal Morph from your deck or graveyard. More on that last effect for later, but for this thing, it's just a lot of big numbers in specific situations, alongside some decent protection, especially when summoned using Landstar's material. It even gets a revenge search if the opponent manages to get rid of it. Not as useful as Pitch Black, but as we'll see later, that other effect makes it worth running at 1. Their new field spell is called Red Eyes Shadow Mountain. When this card is activated, you can add one Red Eyes spell trap card except Red Eyes Shadow Mountain from your deck to your hand. Contribute one Red Eyes monster you control. Special summon one Red Eyes monster from your graveyard with a different name than the tributed monster. If a Red Eyes monster is tributed, except by the effect of Red Eyes Shadow Mountain, you can inflict damage to the opponent equal to half the original attack of the tributed monster. You can only use each effect of Red Eyes Shadow Mountain once per turn. If any archetype needed a field spell, this would be it, and I think this fits the theme well enough. There are more than enough tributing effects in the archetype, both in the new support and in existing cards, plus it also deals a fair bit of burn damage if you tribute one of the higher leveled monsters. It also serves as a bit of an ash bait, allowing you to search out another spell trap on activation, of which can include the final piece of support that I alluded to with the last monster. Red Eyes Scale Metal is a normal trap card with the following effect. Target one face-up Red Eyes monster on the field, equip this card to that target. It gains attack and defense equal to its level or rank times 100. Once per turn you can increase the level of the equipped monster by 1. If the equipped monster battles an opponent's monster, the equipped monster gains attack and defense equal to half the attack and defense of the opponent's battling monster during damage calculation only. If this effect activates during your opponent's turn, destroy this card during the end phase. This card's name is also treated as Metal Morph while face up on the field. I almost had a panic attack when I first saw this effect until I saw the second to last line of the card text. That was actually a really clever balancing mechanic that makes it perfectly acceptable to use as both a power-up and a battle trap. I gotta give props to Kieran, he really knows how to make an interesting card. I did have to be careful to make sure that it still played well with Jinzo, since the restrictions on both almost went out of their way to exclude themselves, but I was able to fix them to work properly. As for whether or not I think it's better than Fang with Chain, I would say they're different. Scale Metal is stronger, but Fang with Chain is far better for disruption, so I would say make room for both. And that should do it for Red Eyes. I didn't want to go too overboard with the new support, especially after the last video, but the deck desperately needed direction, as well as a way to try and combine some of the better elements of its existing cards. For my closing thoughts, all I can say is that this may just be the most awkwardly mishandled bit of legacy support I've ever seen, and I am very much including BLS. I know that's not exactly a unique observation, but like I've said, this is one of the most famous examples of being a bad deck. And when you get down to it, that's the whole point of this series' existence in the first place. I guess Red Eyes really did have potential in it after all. Go figure. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. That turned out to be a bit longer than I would have liked, though not nearly as bad as the last one. Maybe I'll look into reviewing Malice Vorus after all. Anyway, the next entry might be delayed a bit because finals are a bitch, so look out for a further update on that soon. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, don't get run over. I'll see you later. Also, the cards I made were Landstar, Dual Blast, and Shadow Mountain.